Hello and welcome to another edition of Sunspots. I'm your host, Evan Cooke, joined here by the head coach, Ben Macauley, as we break down a Week 5 victory that the Sun had over this past weekend, as well taking a look at the second half of the season coming up here. Maybe we'll start with this last weekend out in Nanaimo, taking on the VI Raiders, a game that a lot of people before the game were talking about being a close one, but it didn't really end up being that. 45-11 was the final score in a Sun victory. What were your thoughts on that game and how it played out? Were you surprised maybe that it wasn't closer?
I wasn't really surprised. If that's the kind of close games we're playing this year, I'll be very happy. But I'm not really surprised because our defense has been playing really well, our special teams have been playing well, and our offense has been much improved as well. So, we had some struggles still, but if we can struggle and not really play our best football and still come away with a 30-plus point victory, then I'm happy.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting game in the way it all ended up going because the offense didn't actually put points on the board until the fourth quarter, but they didn't have to because your D was putting up points, special teams put up points. Did you like how you were getting production from all sides of the football in that way?
Absolutely, and our offense did what we asked them to do and put us in field goal range. We think if we get into close games, we've always got the advantage. We just need to take care of the football, and so we asked our offense to be secure the ball, not turn it over, which we did pretty well. And we asked them to burn the clock, which we do by the run game. So we did some of those things well. Obviously, we'd like to end every drive in the end zone. It's just not the case. We're playing against a good defense and a well-coached team in Nanaimo for the Vancouver Island Raiders. So game plan-wise, we had to make some adjustments in order to get on the board in the second half.
Now, as you saw how your defense performed over the weekend, in talking to coaches of other teams, that's something that they always bring up is how tough the defense is to play against. What have you seen out of them as they've grown as a group so far over the first half of this year?
Well, we've got a lot of maturity on our defense. They may not be the rah-rah guys or the really overhyped guys, but we do have some mature, excellent athletes starting from our defensive line across the board in all four positions. We've got maturity and experience there. And then that flows back to our linebackers who are, arguably the best group in the country at each position. And we had Eli Haynes, who had 9 tackles in the game and is an emotional leader as well. So as that your starting point, the front seven, if we're winning against the offensive line, they really can't get anything going on the other side of the ball, which is what I think most teams are finding now. And then when they do get something going, we have 8 or 9, 10 guys around the football every time forcing turnovers. So it's a big group effort. There's not just this front seven. It's a 12-man game, and all 12 guys are involved.
We saw at points in the game this past weekend. Nick Wemmons started. He took a big hit at one point and came out for a few series as Nate Anderson went in and played quarterback for a little bit there. Didn't see Keith Zyla in that game. What was your decision kind of process there?
Yeah, we had a minor setback this week with Keith's health. It was just something that we didn't want to risk. And Nate's played quarterback in high school. He's a receiver for us, but he's comfortable with the football. He's obviously not up to speed of the playbook as much as Nick or Keith would be, but we also had a light travel roster because of going to the island. We take fewer players, so left us with fewer options in order to get a backup in there. But we felt that at this point of the year, with a pretty comfortable lead and the defense playing so well, that we didn't need to put Keith in and risk any further injury to him.
You talk about your front seven on the defensive side, and like I mentioned, that's something that other coaches talk a lot about. How do you think they're going to adjust as you start playing these teams a second time around? How do you think they're going to adjust to try and counteract that?
Well, some teams have had some success doing some things. They just haven't been able to get any consistency with it. And for our defense, it's going to be not taking plays off, not getting comfortable with where we're at, continuing to bring pressure and force them into mistakes. we've been able to capitalize and keep a really high turnover ratio. So, at plus 19 or something like that for the year, I think it might even be more than that. We're doing pretty well as far as taking the football away from other teams, and that's something we've got to keep doing. Get them rest, let our offense grind down the clock a little bit, and just be aggressive and physical.
Going into a bye week here, how does the structure of this week become different? So what kinds of things will you be doing with this group over the course of the bye week as you prepare to play the Raiders again in a couple of weeks?
Well, we'll be taking a little bit of time off this week. We've got to rest up and get healthy. It's important that we have a lot of volunteers that run the organization, from coaches to training staff and all around, that everyone needs kind of a chance to recharge. So if we're able to, take a few days off, spend time with our families and come back refocused, and get ready for Vancouver Island again, it's going to give us a new perspective on the game. And we've been pretty much head down every single day since training camp started almost 2 months ago. So it'll be a nice little break, and then we got to refocus and realize that our goals are much bigger than winning BC. We want to win a national title, so we've got some work to do. And with that Vancouver Island rematch coming up, what would you like to see your group do better in that game at the Apple Bowl? Well, I'd like to see, obviously offensive production would be great to have, but I just want to see them finishing drives. There were times where we were putting together, 2 or 3 plays in a row, and then we have kind of a bonehead mistake or a mental error. Offensively and on special teams, we had a couple of those. So while we played really well overall, it'd be nice to eliminate those mental mistakes and string together full drives, full quarters, and full halves of football without mistakes. Welcome back here to Sunspots, joined by our second guest of the show here today, running back of the Okanagan Sun, Brenden Hansen. Brenden, thanks for stopping by today. Lots to talk about, starting with the game that happened just over the last weekend in Nanaimo against the VI Raiders, but maybe talk a little bit about how things have been going for you this season, because it's been not the start you've wanted. You were on the shelf for the first 4 games, but finally got back against VI last week. Frustrating start to your season, not being able to get out there right away.
Yeah, it definitely is frustrating. It's hard to watch the boys going at it on the field. Well, you can't really do anything, but there's so many things you can do as a teammate off the field, right? You can be a good leader, you can be taking the mental reps, you can still be a part of the program even though you're not that guy physically running the ball, making the block, making that big catch, right? So it's been difficult, yeah, but coaches have made it very easy on me. Transitioning me slowly back onto the field in practice, and yeah, it's been okay so far. So.
As an observer to the group of running backs that you guys have had this season, there's been some good success with the running game in games past. What have you thought about how they've kind of progressed week to week?
I'm so proud of these guys. Like this is one of the best core running back groups that I've seen in my years of football. And like guys like Kelton Curry and Robbie and Joseph, they've just been killing it, right? They've been doing such a great job. And then coming back into the mix after this bye week, we'll have Tanner Sudo back hopefully as well. And he's another great guy who you guys haven't got to see on the field yet, but in practice, and he's been taking some great mental reps, and he's going to look like he's going to be quite good for us. So it's a great group.
I mean, it's kind of interesting being in a position calling games, because off the field, you guys look fairly similar in terms of how your body type is and all that. But on the field, almost don't even have to look at numbers anymore when you see guys running, because there's so many unique running styles out there that you can almost tell which guy has the ball just by how he's running.
Totally. Yeah, all of our running backs specifically, like you said, we all have very similar stats when it comes to our weight and height and size, but we run the ball different, right? Like every guy's different. They've came from different coaches, different backgrounds, and so some guys like to hustle, drop their shoulders a bit more. Other guys make guys miss, and it's cool.
Getting in against the Raiders this past weekend, first off, maybe how did you feel getting out there finally in game action this year?
Excited. Yeah, I was very excited to get out there. I was patient. I didn't want to try to force my way onto the field. Myself, Zyla, Shamar, we're all coming off of injuries and still got the dress in the game, but knowing that we weren't going to have our usual role of getting the ball plenty of times, getting to see the field the full time. So Coaches were great with just throwing me in for a series or two just to get my feet wet, and felt really good. I was really thankful just to get that opportunity. So.
As we were talking about earlier in the show, it was a game that on paper, final score 45-11 looks like a blowout, but offensively, the points came from defense, they came from special teams. Offense didn't even put points on the board in the form of a touchdown until the fourth quarter. How did you feel in that matchup against that D? How was that?
You know what? I felt like we did a really good job. We just have to finish, right? If we don't capitalize on good drives and good series, then most games your defense isn't going to be scoring 2 or 3 times. Your special team, you're not going to be having special teams touchdowns. So you really do have to rely on finishing in the red zone, and if you have a good run, then have a good pass after that, have another good run. Don't just be satisfied with a good play and getting good field positioning. We really do need to get into the end zone.
Another thing I wanted to ask about was penalties, because when those were tallied up at the end of the game on Saturday, you already knew without even asking both coaching staffs that both coaching staffs would like to see those numbers drop. As a guy in the field, it seems to be that there have been higher penalty totals, frankly, for many of the teams this season. What do you see out of this group? Is it guys losing their tempers? It hasn't really seemed to be those types of penalties that have cost you guys.
You know what? Some penalties are definitely avoidable. You don't need a holding call. You don't need a cheap shot call. Those are things that coaches really grill into us in practice. We run when we do stuff like that. And it doesn't go unnoticed by the coaching staff. It's not acceptable. So getting rid of those unnecessary penalties, that's fine. There's my helmet came off on one play and I got a 10-yard penalty for it, right? And things like that, you can't avoid, right? It's part of football, but we really do want to get those numbers down.
That's another thing that's been happening a lot this year too. Helmets flying off. It seems like not just you, tons of guys for whatever reason, they're just popping off all over the place a lot of the time.
CJFL hits hard, right? We like our contact, so.
Yeah, no kidding. It's certainly been the case this year. And as you're a veteran guy, you were talking a little bit about before when you're not out there playing all the time and having to take on a different role. What about taking on the role of doing more mentoring of some of the younger players? Do you like to take on that role as a more veteran guy?
I love it. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I've had great mentors in my past. When I was at U of C, Mercer Timmis was just great to me, right? I learned so much from the guy above me as well as my coaches, right? So I've always wanted to be that mentor for somebody, and I'm finally in the position where I am a veteran, and we've got some young guys who are showing great potential. So to me personally, it is really important to get those guys to fulfill their potential and help them in every way I can.
Second half of the season almost upon us, and it starts with this rematch against the Raiders. What are you expecting to see differently when you guys suit up against that Raiders team that comes to the Apple Bowl in a couple of weeks?
You know what? I think it's going to be a very different game than what you guys saw in the NIMO. We play different at home, just like they play different at home. They're typically known as a team that's stronger at home. And I think we did a good job at showing that we're strong wherever we go. But I think offense, this upcoming week here after the bye, you're going to see something very different. We have all be coming back full swing. Shamar should be in full health. Keith Zyla, I know you guys have been waiting to see him come back, and I know he's expected then as well. So those are 3 players that can make a difference on the field that we haven't really seen this year. So hopefully offense is going to be a little different, and we can finish on those drives. And I think our defense is still going to be great, and it's going to be a good fight with VI, right? They're a good team.
Okanagan Sun back in action Sunday, September the 10th. That game's at the Apple Bowl. A 1 p.m. kickoff means the pregame show on AM 1150 gets going at 12:30. This has been another edition of Sunspots. Thanks for watching.